Before I get started, I'd like to take an opportunity here. As the mayor mentioned, this is quite a substantial process. The mayor is holding up a copy of my budget presentation, and there are copies at the front of the room. If you don't have one, please grab one. If you'd like to be able to read the numbers a little bit better, it's going to be a little bit hard to see some of these here on the screen. But before I get started, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our staff, most notably our finance staff. We have our Finance Director, Sandra Crawford, here, our Deputy Finance Director, Jamin Winters, here, Assistant City Manager Kevin Yee is here, all of our other staff as well for their commitment. This is probably the biggest thing that we do each and every single year, so I want to thank them for their continuing efforts. Proposing a 3-year budget gives us time to model and plan for the unforeseen. We really took this cue from Oakland County, who's a AAA rated entity, and we've been doing this now for several years. So it includes the budget for next year, which I want to mention our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30, as well as fiscal years 2023-24 and fiscal year 24-25. And so in discussing the current economic climate, let me talk a little bit about the big picture stuff. Since 2002, the state of Michigan has used revenue sharing that the city of Oak Park would have otherwise received that totals just over $22 million. And this is $7.5 billion statewide. So imagine now if the city of Oak Park since 2002 had this over $22 million to use, we wouldn't have had to raise taxes at any point, etc. This would have been very helpful. And $7.5 billion has been taken away statewide. Now, it's also important to note that in the last couple of years, actually in the second half of the Snyder administration, revenue sharing has begun to increase. And in the Whitmer administration, we're seeing increases as well. We've also seen substantial federal COVID funding assistance, that this funding helping us deal with revenues lost and additional expenses has helped tremendously, has considerably helped us balance our budget and do some of the things that we've been trying to do, and but for COVID, we would have been able to do some of those things. Now, I will say that wage and market rate of inflation is making it much harder to attract new employees. We're struggling to attract new staff just like everybody. You see this in the private sector especially, but we're struggling with that too. And the cost of our infrastructure projects. So all of our road projects, our sewer projects, etc., are costing more, including the fence project, as a matter of fact. I wanted to talk about this part. This speaks volumes to the city's transformation. And you look at the taxable value percent change by year, and you go all the way back down to 2014, and the city of Oak Park had a negative taxable value change of 0.47% in 2014. That means that our taxable value shrunk by 0.5% in that fiscal year, all the way now to what we're projecting to be a 10% increase in fiscal year 2022-23. And that it speaks volumes to how far the city has come in terms of our economic development projects, new residents moving in. We were one of the very few inner ring suburbs to actually grow in size. We grew by a few hundred residents. So 1 mil of your taxes in 2008, which is the very peak of the city's taxable value was worth about $728 million. And at the low point, now remember for cities, after the crash of 2008, the low point was between 2012 and 2014. For us, the very bottom of what 1 mil of property taxes was worth was in 2014, where it was worth about $432 million. Now, you look at the good news. The good news is this, that since that time now, we've increased our revenue from 1 mil up to almost $600 million. So for every mil of property taxes, we're timesing that 0.001 times our $600 million value and pulling out our millage from that. But it speaks volumes, again, to the improvements in economic development projects and new housing starts and so forth. I also wanted to mention our top 10 employers. I've highlighted 2 of these, and this is a testament to our Economic Development Director, Kim Maroney's efforts to bring new businesses here. But 2 of these businesses I've highlighted here, Kroger and FedEx, are new to the city as of the last 5 years. So imagine that now. Number 1 and number 3, largest employers in our city, 5 years ago did not exist. And these are direct indications of our economic development business attraction efforts. In 2014, when our public safety retirement system was at its very low point, it was about 49.9% funded. In 2021, it was about 68% funded. Now, this may seem like just numbers to some of you, but for me and for the city and for the taxpayers of the city, this is a big deal. This is, the more we fund our retirement systems, the less money that has to come out of our general fund budget. And the same can be said for our general system. The percent funded in 2016, which is when it was at its lowest point, was 43.3% versus the 55.5% now. So the more we fund those, the less we have to contribute from our general fund towards retirement benefits, and the more money that we'll have free then to use for other things. I wanted to put, in terms of the budget highlights, the utility bill comparison. We have spent a tremendous amount of time working on this, and I think it's important for people to know how we stack up against cities around us. And if you can see right in the middle there, so for those of you who have the printed copy, that's slide 9, right in the middle there, Oak Park is somewhere in the middle. And and this is apples to apples comparison for the average monthly water and sewer users. So the average user in our city is about 7 units of water. And that compares, with the very high there, Pleasant Ridge in 2021 at 140.73 per unit. So we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're somewhere in between, and we stack up pretty nicely on an apples to apples basis. Couple of budget highlights in terms of revenue and expenditures. We have 300,000+ in new money coming to the general fund from brownfield TIFs that are expiring on FedEx and Eaton Steel in this coming budget year. So those were the economic development incentives that we created to attract FedEx and to incentivize Eaton Steel to expand. And then now we're reaping the benefits of that with about 300,000+ of new revenue coming into the general fund. Also, as I mentioned before, revenue-wise, COVID assistance from the federal government has helped tremendously. We expect another $1.4 million in the next fiscal year, 22-23. Expenditures, we're going to continue our path towards hiring new officers. We have 3 planned new hires in our public safety department for fiscal year 22-23. And with savings from previous years, as well as federal assistance, of course, we will be I'm happy to announce, by the way, that we will be purchasing a new ladder fire truck now. And we're not going to wait until the new fiscal year because we don't want to give potential cost increases an opportunity to move forward. So we're going to try to do that now. So I'm very, very excited to announce that. We're going to be purchasing a new ladder fire truck this current year, or at least we're going to try to. And there's a backup on those too. Other considerations, I thought it was worth mentioning that the total city millage rate has decreased by just over 5 mils in the last 6 or so years. So the total city millage rate, so this includes debt service, this includes PA 345, operating mills, Headley overrides, has decreased by just over 5 mils. So council members, I know especially you hear this, and I hear this all the time too. Well, why are you raising my taxes? Well, we're not raising your taxes. The millage rate since fiscal year 2015-16 has actually gone down by over 5 mils. We are not recommending a fee increase for solid waste, which is awesome, and that's our 4th straight year of not raising having a fee increase for solid waste. We are, however, recommending a 6% combined water and sewer rate increase versus the 0% increase in the current year. So let me put this into perspective. This current fiscal year that we're in, City Council, with the recommendation of the administration, agreed not to raise water and sewer rates. The water and sewer model that we did back in 2014 recommended that we raise rates each and every year for somewhere between 6 and 8% per year. We chose not to do that in the current fiscal year because of all the things that were going on pandemic-wise and so forth. That leaves us, however, to make a recommendation to raise it 6%. That includes a 4% wholesale rate increase from the Great Lakes Water Authority, and of course allows us to deal with infrastructure and maintenance costs. We are also recommending a 0-unit minimum bill setup. And let me briefly just say this, we also have our water supervisor, Kevin Vandewall, here. If anybody would like to speak with him afterwards, you're welcome to. A 0-unit minimum bill setup means that if you don't use up to a unit of water, you are not going to be charged for a unit of water. We used to have a 2-unit minimum, meaning if you used 0 units of water, you were being charged at least 2 units minimum. We are now recommending a 0-unit minimum, which means if you don't use 1 unit of water, meaning if you don't use at least 750 gallons of water, then you're not going to be charged for 1 unit. You're going to be charged for 0. Now, you might use that in the next month because your meter might tick over, but there's about 400 users in the city of the, 11,000 accounts or so that we think this will most closely impact. So if you're a low water user, this is for you. Here we are. And we're not recommending, by the way, as part of this, a increase to the stormwater runoff utility rate. So while we are recommending an increase for water and sewer at 6%, we are not saying to City Council in our recommendation to increase the stormwater runoff utility rate. So that, whatever that is now on your bill, your stormwater runoff utility fee will be maintained as long as City Council adopts the budget as recommended. And I thought it was important to put this slide in here, council members, because we have been able to maintain our general fund balance for the last several years, and we're somewhere in the range of 20%. Now, it's important to note that somewhere between 8 and 10% is our policy recommendation that we have in stone in our policy, that we are more than doubling that policy recommendation. And obviously, it's in our best interest to do so. We want to upgrade our credit rating to at least a AA minus. Right now we're an A plus stable. So we'd like to get up to AA minus and really go at things. And one of those things is the possibility of refinancing even more debt at lower rates when rates improve, of course. So I'm going to take some questions here in a moment, council members, but before I do, the approvals required are listed out in your packet, and they are as stated here in front of me. And with that, I will take questions, comments, concerns.